Hi folks, this is Meredith from the Papery Craftery, and today we're going to be making some quilling paper chamomile. We're going to make flowers and leaves, and to switch it up a little bit, we're using this wider 3/8 inch quilling paper. You can see compared to the 1/8 inch that I normally use. You can use either, but sometimes I like to just use a different material. We do need to use a longer channeled slotted tool for this. This is only slightly longer than my other slotted tool here. There you go, I can see it's a little bit longer. It's not as long as the paper itself, the 3/8 inch, but it will be a little bit handy to have a longer tool. You can use a needle tool for some of this project, but you'll need a slotted tool as well. I have Elmer's glue all in my needle nose container. And I do have a work board here, a little cork board with some pins covered in parchment paper because we're going to be building our flower on top of that later. So to start with, you are going to use a yellow of your choice. This is deep yellow, again 3/8 inch from Quilled Creations. And we're making the center of the flower using the beehive technique. And to do that, it's a matter of putting your slotted tool in your paper, turning a few times, and taking it back out again. So you're looking for something like that. I did give a couple turns to start with as well. Put your tool back in, twist again a few times, and pull it out. I'm doing the twisting until it meets the curl above it, which in this case is about 3 turns, about a 1/2 inch down every time. And I'm looking for only about 5 different curls here. I could have just cut the paper or torn the paper to start with and then curled what I had, but I wanted to show the entire process here in case you chose not to do it that way. It's hard to get an exact measurement, so that's why I thought using the long strip and then curling what I needed would be the best. So I did not mention grabbing a small scissor earlier, but you may want to grab one of those as well. And then all I'm going to do is just sort of bunch up these little curls here into what's going to end up looking sort of like a half moon. These flowers are not going to be straight on view. These are going to be sort of the profile of the flowers, like you're looking at them from the side and they're opening up towards the sun. So we're just looking for, as opposed to a whole circle for the center of this flower, sort of a half circle. And to get that to stay, I did put some glue, like I said, between the little curls. And now I'm just going to put some pins in just to make sure that it stays the way I want it so I don't have to hold it. And that's pretty much a little bit more there maybe. And then another pin, just get that in place. That's pretty much it. There's not going to be an exact science to this. It's just making a few curls, bunching them back together again, just to get that look. Right there is what we're going for. Next thing we're going to do is make our petals for our chamomile. So I have a bright white paper, also from Quilled Creations. This is a strip about 5 inches long, and I'm just going to curl this and make it into a teardrop. If you wanted to use the slotted tool again, you are welcome to. Or you can use your needle tool, whichever you prefer for this part. And it's just a matter of rolling it all the way from end to end, taking it off the tool, gluing the little tail down, and giving it a good pinch. And I just want to mention one thing before we move on, why we're using the longer channeled slotted tool here is because if you use a shorter slotted tool for this wider paper, sometimes the section of the paper that's not inside the slot doesn't curl exactly the same way. It sort of makes it a little bit bumpier, a little lumpier. You're not going to get as nice of a roll with that beehive, or if you did it for the petals themselves. So I just want to mention that's the why. I think I kind of breezed through that part earlier. As far as those petals go, you notice there I did have 5 for each flower. And now we're moving on to the leaves. So this is a similar start, except this paper is 4 inches long, and this is a color called sage green. back from Quill Creations. Again, I really like their 3/8 inch paper. They have really a good selection of the colors they have there. So I curled this all the way to the end and putting a little bit of glue down there as well. And this time, once we get that tail set up, a little rub here, just make sure everything is set. Okay, so for this shape, we are going to give it a good solid pinch in the center, and then just do a little gentle curve to both sides, just a kind of a squished marquee shape, a little S shape. And for each leaf, we are going to need 7 of this shape. You don't have to make it a really exaggerated marquee, just a little bit of curve to it will be fine. And I have 7 of those here, and that's going to be for each leaf. To connect all these little leaf pieces together, we are going to need another piece for the center, which will be kind of the vein of the leaf. We're also doing the same thing for the stems of the flowers. And all that's going to be is just a double thick strip made in the same sage green. So just take any length that you wish. This is just a little scrap piece that I had. I'm going to be using for one of the stems. I fold it in half and I run some glue all the way down, making sure there is glue on every little section. Doesn't have to be a lot of glue, but it has to cover the entire thing. And squeeze all the air out of that. Once it dries, it's going to be nice and sturdy, which will be perfect for the stem for these flowers and also for the center of the leaf. So once those are done, you can set the leaves and the stems aside for now. We're going to go back and start constructing our flower. So I have my 5 petals here, and I have the center that I've taken most of the pins out. I just left one in just to keep everything in place. And then it's just a matter of gluing all your pieces together for your flower. So I am starting with the center just to make sure that everything gets evenly placed. And you can put a pin or 2 in each petal to make sure that they stay in place. That's what I'm going to do, just because it's better to be safe than have everything move around a whole bunch of times on you. Then I'm adding the next petal. So a little bit of glue on the point, but I also want these petals to stick to each other. So a little bit of glue on the side where it's going to meet, and get that set up there. If you have some tweezers, that might be helpful. It's not necessary, but it could be helpful. So I didn't include that earlier. And petal number 2, and let's move on to petal number 3. Same thing on this one, a little bit of glue at the point and then a little bit of glue on the side. And I'm going to put that there. And another pin to keep that in place. And then the other 2 petals are going to go on the other side of the center. So turn this, we can get a better view. And if you chose to make a full flower in this way, of course you could. This is a pretty standard flower shape. The only big change here is the beehive in the center. So you could make more of those beehive curls, make it more of a circle type shape, and then make more petals, putting them around. That would work for this same idea. It really, chamomile flowers really sort of look like daisies. So that's why I've done daisies on the channel before. So in order to have sort of a different technique and a little bit different look, we added the wider paper for this. We're going from the side angle and then the beehive technique for the center. There we go. That's going to be one of our chamomile flowers. All we're going to do now is take one of those green strips that we doubled up, run it through my fingers a little bit to give it sort of a curve, and then just place it between 2 flowers wherever you like. You could put it right coming out of one of the flower petals, but let's just make it a little bit sturdier and put it between 2 of them. So a little bit of glue and just slide that baby right in there. And I'm going to put in a couple of pins here because it's sort of bouncing off of my board a tiny bit. So putting those 2 pins kind of crossways there will keep it nice and flat. So when it dries, the stem won't be crooked. Now the only thing left to do is put our leaves together, which is going to start off pretty much the way that the last piece ended. We curved a double thick piece in my fingers, and then I have 2 pins keeping it in place. And I'm gonna dip here, just this one. Oops. And I just want to get it right on the end, just like that. So one is going to come out right from the end. You can use pins to keep this together. You can just hold it for a few minutes while it dries. If you wanted to set up quicker, you could always use tacky glue. We're just using just regular Elmer's white glue for this entire project. And then once that sets for a moment, you can start putting on the rest of your petals. So just move everything out of the way here so we can focus. I'm putting a little line of glue on one of the bump outs of my marquees. This one is going to go right under. So where the bump out goes in is where I'm going to glue it. And then just the nature of that S shape, it's going to kind of curl around the piece on top of it. And then we're going to add 2 more to that side in the same way. And then 3 to the other side. So it's going to be even. There's my second. And again, the S shape just kind of makes a curl around the one in front. A little bit of glue on the bottom bump out here. And it just hugs the one on top. And then you can just flip it around to the other side. Now, chamomile leaves are sort of very fluttery and fern-like. Some of them, a certain variety even just has little spindly. It almost looks like, if you're familiar with dillweed, it sort of looks like that really fine kind of, they're not even feathery. I don't know what you would call it, but they're very, very thin. It's very hard to make that out of paper. So this is just sort of a take on what a certain kind of chamomile leaves could look like, more of a fern shape. And there's our third one on the second side. So then we're just going to let that dry, and we can put some of these flowers together. There's another one. Once it dries, you can see, even though we just put a little bit of glue on the bottom, they're pretty sturdy. There's another one where the center didn't go straight up. That's okay. There we go. So as far as putting some of these together, chamomile sort of go tall and sort of bend over. So that's why we have one on each stem. So make them different heights. I even have a smaller stem there in the center where it hasn't opened up as much. Maybe it's like a newer flower. So there's less amounts of the beehive curls and only 4 petals. Put them together with some leaves, and that's pretty much your whole composition right there. I do have here an example of if you use thinner paper, your standard 1/8 inch quilling paper, same technique, but just less wide. I like the wider paper. It makes it look a little bit more dynamic, a little bit more modern. And there's another take you can do if you wanted to go really modern and just do loops instead of making teardrops. To make these, if anybody's interested, I can make a short. It doesn't really warrant an entire video, but I can make a short talking about how I made these flowers here. Similar process, just using loops of the paper instead of the teardrops. Again, super modern look there if you're looking for something else to use this nice wide paper for. But that is about that for these quilling paper chamomile flowers. As always, any questions you have, feel free to leave them in the comments and I'll answer them as soon as I can. You want to make sure that if you have any questions about beehive, I do have a longer video on that and I can link that down in the description box as well. I will have links for all the tools and supplies I use there, in addition to a link to my Buy Me a Coffee page where you can support me there if you'd like. I've had a lot of people take advantage of some of the freebies I have there, which is always nice to see. And lastly, don't forget to like and subscribe so you can be around for my next video, and I'll see you then. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.